I'm a biological woman, but I have gone under testosterone.
Okay, sure.
I have watched some of your videos for the last couple of months, and I'm wondering when you spoke about the LGBT movement that's going around, let's say in the West, and you said in one of
I'm
your
not sure which
videos,
video.
you said that homosexuality isn't a biological aspect to it, if I remember correctly.
I don't think I said that claim word for word. But you're talking about being innate.
What do you mean about that?
Do you know what innate means?
What English isn't my first language, so
Sure. Yeah, that's what I'm asking you. Innate means that you are born with it, meaning you're born with it. You have no control or choice over it. That's the argument I'm making. It is that there's no proof for this. That a person is born biologically with a specific sexual orientation. In this case, the one gay sexual orientation, and on top of that, they're not only born with it, they cannot change it because they're born with it. Because we hear this argument from the LGBTQ movement. So that is the argument that I was responding to in whichever video you're referring to. That is my argument, basically.
Yeah, is it possible to change it?
I presented in my video studies. I don't know which video you're talking about.
I think you talk about a scientist or a psychologist named Robert Spitzer.
Spitzer, yes, in America, yes.
Yeah.
And I talked about his study with 200 homosexual people, and I talked about the backlash he got in the media for using the word reparative treatment, and I talked about the pressure in the community that was applied to him, which has nothing to do with whether it was a scientific experiment or not, because it was. And that pressure has made him retract the study. A lot of people say, oh, that study was retracted. No, if this is what you were about to say, it's not really an argument, because it's not about him retracting it or not retracting it. He used a scientific methodology. He spoke to those people, and those people themselves said, he didn't force any of them. All of the 200 people said that they became heterosexual from homosexual. Now, the fact that he's been criticized because America, obviously, after the sexual revolution and all of that, and it became the forbidden sin to criticize the LGBT community. In certain cases, people can go to jail, not only in America, but in places in the West. Now, when that societal shift happened, now it's very easy for science, and science is impacted. Studies are not as objective. All of them are objective as you think they are. A lot of them are impacted by the social norms and social tendencies and what people see as taboo and what people don't see as taboo, etc. So in this case, he was first criticized for the word reparative. So you see, even it was a gradual thing until he retracted the study, or they took it off Nature. It was on Nature magazine. They took it off. It's still there. You can find it in PUP and all of these different websites which shows you scientific studies. You can find it. But they took it off Nature. First, they attacked him for using the word reparative, because the word reparative kind of means you need to repair something. This is what reparative means. So it kind of have a negative assumption. So then he was criticized for that first. Then he changed the wording. Then he was criticized again until he had to remove it. And there's all of these, interviews that happened to him from the press where they're all attacking him. And this is just not just a nobody. That's why there was so much pressure put on him. He was called the father of modern psychology in America at the time. It's a very, very influential figure. And that's why it's very, very difficult for anyone to conduct similar studies like the one of Robert Spitzer, due to the fact that they don't allow them to do these studies. The universities are not going to accept it. They're not going to peer review it. All of these things. I have many friends, by the way, who try to do certain, but they're not allowed. They don't peer review them. They reject it. The professors supposed to peer review it. The people who need to look at it, they don't. They look at these things as taboo. They don't want to go into this. I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to be canceled. That's the word that some people use. I don't want to be canceled. Therefore, I'm not. No, some people like their jobs and they just don't want to go into that. So, and a lot of people do similar things with evolution or the existence of God. There's a documentary called The Expelled. And within that documentary, you can see people, for example, who mention God's existence in their research, how they're excommunicated or talk against evolution, etc. So the societal acceptance of certain things, the societal norms and societal worldviews impact studies. But in the end, you cannot present me a fault in his study, scientific fault in his study. You can't. because the study
What?
was valid.
How was it valid? Would you say?
He conducted a study with 200 people who were Are you aware of how the study happened, or what happened?
A bit, but you can sure enlighten me.
No, you can research it up after our discussion. But he brought 200 people. They were all homosexuals. All of them, the 200 people that he talked to. I believe it was a period of 5 years or something like that. Around this time frame. Don't quote me exactly on how many years now. You can do your research and find it on your own. And those people then expressed that they have changed their tendencies, their attraction. It has changed from homosexual to heterosexual tendencies. And that's it. No, you can speak to me now, me and you right now, right? We can speak to each other for 10,000 years, not 5 years. I'm never going to start telling you I'm attracted to men now. It's not going to happen. Just basically by just speaking to me, it's not going to happen. Because I'm born and I'm naturally just has how a human body, male and female, is created. And I don't want to get graphic here, but you have two body parts that perfectly fit with each other. You have a process of reproduction, which is essential to the existence of the human race. The end results when those two body parts meet. You have these two body parts releasing certain lubricants, etc., because they're naturally designed for that specific action to take place. So I can present many things. This is how God has made us, has created us. And, like I said, I don't want to get graphic. I don't know.
Sure.
But I don't like getting graphic either way. Yes.
Yeah, it seems like you're just using that one simple study to say that it's possible when we have.
You're missing the point, my friend. You're missing the point. Is it okay if I say my friend? I'm just saying it like
no worries.
Yeah. So you're missing the point. I'm not. My argument is I don't need to prove that you're not born with a homosexual tendency. I don't need to do that. You make the claim, so you need to prove that. That's what you need to understand. What I'm doing in that video is not making arguments against. Therefore, I'm showing you. Look, here are contradictory studies. And I didn't only mention this, I mentioned other things. For example, I mentioned a book called My Genes Made Me Do It, which talks about this idea that the genes are not the determining factor for the sexual orientation and sexual attraction. Talked about how they did studies on twins, but identical twins. So identical twins, we talk about, they're identical. Same genetics, whatever, they're born. And one of them is gay or homosexual, one is not. If it was a genetic thing, given the fact that they're twins, given the fact they're identical, growing up in the same environment, all of that, they will be both gay. But they're not. So I presented many things which contradicts the claim. But not only that, then I also said there is no evidence, because I also presented evidence to that. What did I present as evidence? Nature magazine. Again, we come back to Nature magazine that forced Robert Spitzer to remove his research. Nature magazine conducted a study in 2019. Do you know what is the title of the study?
Not sure, maybe?
It says No Gay Gene. That's the title of the study. And it tells you how they spent millions or billions or whatever of dollars trying to find...
Can I just jump in?
Yeah, okay, I'll finish the sentence now. Now. So you have this study. It says No Gay Gene. And it was the community like yours and the people who support the community like the LGBT community, basically. People from that community or people who support them who conducted the study, because they're trying to show, basically, evidence that, you know what, look, we want to prove genetically that this is a genetic thing. They ended up themselves saying that there is no such thing. There's no gay gene. There's no proof that you have this sexual orientation due to genetic composition. That's their own claim. Like, from the horse of the, I don't know, from the mouth of the horse, or whatever the term is, basically, whatever the expression is. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I know you want to say something. Yes.
Yeah, I think you are wrong when you are talking about the genes part. They said that there's not one single gene that determines your sexuality. It's more of a broad spectrum where there's a lot of genes at place when it comes to your IQ and your height.
That's incorrect. Yeah. That. By the way, that's the edited part, because they edited recently. I know they edited it recently, but they still don't say there is any group of genes, whether one or more, that determines you being homosexual. Find me that in the study. Where is that? Now, do you know what they did in the beginning? Because I read this article, and you know what's funny? You know what I do sometimes? I download the page, because when you download the page, you have the original page before they edit it.
Mhm.
I do that sometimes. I take screenshots and I download it, or I go to archive.org or whatever. You can try to do that. Go to archive.org. And you will see how every little bit they keep editing this one, because this article was quoted so much by people who are from the opposite side. So now they started to make the wording as, as diplomatic as possible. So now, yes, it is true, there isn't not a single gene that determines, but still, the study was conducted to show that there are genes, one or more, that make a human being with a homosexual tendency. But there isn't. And the study is not admitting to that, and it's admitting that there isn't. All it's saying is a bunch of nothing. Yes, there are genes that can contribute to this or that. This is all a bunch of nothing. We already know all of that. We're talking about now the genes that are specific to the idea of being homosexual. There's no such thing. Neither combination of genes, nor one gene.
When it comes to, you live in England, right? Or
No.
the UK?
No.
Okay.
And what's funny is sometimes when I make a claim about the West or whatever, I get these comments. Oh, why do you live in the West then? Go live first. I don't live in another. I live in a Muslim country. I don't live in England. I live in a Muslim country. But I don't talk about my personal information online, basically.
Sure,
Obviously,
sure.
due to the fact that I'm well known online and this and that, I just don't tell people where I am. I just don't do that. But I live in a Muslim country. Sometimes I go to the UK, yes, and I engage with people in discourse. I go visit for a few days, let's say, but I don't live there. But go ahead.
Yeah.
What did you want to say?
So, as we were talking about here in the West, where you are allowed to be in a homosexual relationship with someone, would you? Can I ask you what kind of punishment you would like to, let's say, enforce on people that would participate in those kind of behaviors?
Nothing.
Nothing at all.
I nothing at all. I lived in I stayed in non-Muslim countries before. I go to the UK, like I told you, and not only do I see people who are, I've been in the UK so many times in gay parades. I have videos, by the way, where I'm talking to people in the midst of the gay parade, where it's happening, and everyone around me almost is gay, and I don't do anything to anyone. I have a discussion like I do with you. Any nation, there's two things that you need to know. The first thing, in Islam, vigilantism doesn't exist. Nobody in Islam has the right to inflict any punishments, if they existed in the case that you're asking me right now. Nobody, no layman, no public can just go and punish someone and say, oh, you did this, and that's why I'm going to do it to you. No, that's not, it doesn't exist in Islam. And there's a consensus. And when we say consensus from an Islamic point of view, we mean 100%. We don't mean like majority, as it can be used in language. No, in Islam, ijma' means 100%. 100% agreement of scholars that there is no such thing. Hudud, i.e. punitive laws specifically, whether punishments or anything like that, is only applied by the state, the judge, or the representative, whatever. It cannot be applied by human beings, lay public. It doesn't exist. I'm not going to be Batman. Well, I'm going to start wearing a cape. I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to punish you. That doesn't exist in Islam. It exists in Hollywood movies or whatever, but it's not in Islam. The second thing is, punitive laws and punishments or whatever are only applied under an Islamic state, due to the fact that, I told you, they're only applied in Dar al-Islam, meaning the country of Muslims. They're only applied there, and they're applied by a ruler. And even in Muslim countries today, there isn't a single country that 100% applies the Islamic punitive laws the way they are in the Islamic tradition. There isn't. And that's why now, not only, you asked me about the UK, not only the UK, now, today, go to, I don't know, have you been to anywhere, any Muslim country in the Middle East?
No, actually.
Yes. And I think that's a problem, because it's easy for you to fear something, and to have assumptions about something if you've never had an interaction with it. We fear the unknown as people, human beings generally, like it's a psychological thing. Now, if you went today to Dubai, you will find there are gay people walking around, enjoying the sun or whatever. In Qatar, there are people who went in the World Cup, millions of people, gay people, who went and sat and watched. Nothing happened to any of them. And it's a Muslim country now. We're not even talking about the UK. We're talking about Muslim countries. Egypt, go today. Morocco, go. You'll see them walking in the street. Nobody's doing nothing to them. Even in Muslim countries.
But if I can just jump in, would you say that's the right approach? Those countries that you just talked about? That's the right thing to have in a society?
What I believe as a Muslim is that the right thing is what God commands. That's the right thing.
And
what I believe, Yeah.
What will God
What
say
I believe,
about the things you just said about those countries? Are they doing it the right way or the wrong way in your eyes?
there are, like I said to you, any country in this case, any Muslim country that is not fully applying the law of God has problems, because all of us are commanded. We human beings are deficient. We're not perfect. We don't know everything, and therefore because God knows everything, we are supposed to follow the laws and the commands of God. So I criticize anything any country is going to be doing in this case, because I don't like to specifically talk about specific countries and people. I don't do that. I'm giving a general umbrella here. Any country that is not applying the law of God, the Creator, is not doing the right thing. They all need to apply the law and the judgment of the Creator, and it comes over the judgment of human beings, because the Creator knows that which is in the benefit of human beings. That's my approach. Now, in reality, you're missing the point here. Who do you know who forces their ideologies on people? Is the West. Who went to Afghanistan and said we wanna liberalize the Afghani people? Who went to Iraq claiming there's WMDs in there so they can destroy the country and take its resources? What is today Israel doing to the Palestinian people and saying, oh, they don't have democratic, they don't have this and that, we are better, so we're going to do all of that, that we're going to liberalize these people and bring them into the democratic beliefs and whatever. The US putting sanctions on Brunei. Brunei said we are going to apply God's law 100%. They said that. So the US started putting sanctions in there.
Can I just
and other countries in the West. Yes.
What was the law that Brunei wanted to implement?
No, they said we're going to apply all laws, Islamic laws, 100%.
Was it all
now
the
they
laws,
had problems. Now they had all Islamic laws. They said 100%. What Brunei wanted to do is to 100% apply Islamic law. Basic. That's it. It's a Muslim country. They wanted to apply. It's a small place, it's a small island, whatever. They wanted to apply God's laws. Now the West, it's like, wait. Did we give you permission to do that? You're not going to be doing that. Did we give you permission? Look at like Trump and his likes to talk about Somalia, going attacking it every day. And what do you want with Somalia, man? Leave the Muslim people alone. No, but day and night, Western nations are bombing, attacking, invading our countries. Look at what the French did when they went to Algeria. Over 100 years there. Do you have museums in France where they show skulls of people? They have today. We can look at in France at the machines they were using. They're torturing our people. They prevented the Algerian people from teaching or learning the Arabic language. They told them you have to speak in French. That's why they speak French. You have to become like us. You have to be liberalized. We're coming here to enlighten you. Who does that? Is the West. The West is the one that enforces sanctions, that has whatever called international law, which they made. The West. They come to me and ask my nation and Muslims, what do you agree with this international law, whatever? No. Human rights, what they called human rights. Not that we necessarily agree with their definition of human rights, but no, these are human rights. Oh, day and night talking about Afghanistan and Iran. Look what they're doing to women. They're not liberal like us. Day and night. The people who are actually, people who have an issue, with all due respect, like, of course, and this is the fact now. The people who have an issue and want to change an ideology of others is the West. It's not Muslims. Muslims have been living in non-Muslim countries for years. None of them have went and then started applying their law. It didn't happen. They show me an example of this happening. But I show you 100 examples now of the opposite happening, even today.
But when
Syria, the Syrian president who just recently became Syrian president, and then they just put him on they had him on the terrorist list or whatever, and they started sending him people saying, "Oh, you have to do this and this and that, or if you don't do this and that, we're going to do this to you." No, like, what you got to do with our nations? Leave us alone. The Syrian people had enough massacres in their life from Bashar. Why don't you leave our countries alone?
Sure, I agree. But if I might just ask, what were the?
Do you know what? Last thing I'm going to say. I'm sorry. The last thing I'm going to say. Do you know who has bases in every Muslim country in the Middle East? Do you know who does?
The USA, I presume.
Exactly. So the liberal USA, American USA, Christian, whatever term you want to use for it. Mm-hmm. Not a single Muslim country in the world has its bases in the Western countries, everywhere in the West. We don't do that. This is done to us, and this is a threat, Whenever the US wants to do something, it has a base here. We're going to do this to you. We're going to now we're going to see, like we see what's happening with Iran and Israel, whatever. They have bases close, and they keep making these threats. Oh, we have our soldiers, we have our planes, They're not. Trump is like, surrender, unconditional surrender. Bro, he thinks he's the main character or something. Come on, man. Like, these guys bombed Iran first, and then Iran sent them missiles back. Why are you complaining about you're attacking me first? You hit me, you attack me, you kill my people. You've been slaughtering Palestinians for years and years and years. And when you're attacked back, now you're crying. And then you get Trump, the sugar daddy of Israel, making all of these empty threats. Look, the only one who really wants to enforce and persecute and push their methodologies is not the Muslim people.
Sure.
So, anyways, in the end, like I said, I believe in the law of God. I believe the law of God should be applied in my nation. And I believe Muslims have the right for their own law that they believe in to be applied in their state and community. If a non-Muslim comes to that state and community, he doesn't like the law, he's welcome to go live in his own state and community where that law doesn't exist. Don't force anyone to do anything. Allah tells us in the Quran, La ikraha fi din. Chapter 2, verse 256. There's no compulsion on religion. We're not compelling anyone to do anything in this case. But we have an obligation to spread the truth. So like I did with you, look, I have a discussion with you. Look, I deal with you like I dealt with every other human being. You can look at every video I have on my channel. There's no difference. Have nothing in my heart towards you, except wanting good for you, telling you the truth. That's it. That's how. That's what I'm taught as a Muslim.
Yeah, sure. So, what would one of those punishments be if you were caught in the act?
What act?
Let's say having intercourse with the same gender.
Okay, so if we have 2 men or 2 women?
2 men.
Sure. So now to highlight, if 2 women are caught, there is no set punishment in Islam for that because there's no penetration taking place. Now, if 2 men, so it's not just about LGBT, it's about also what type of action is being done. Let me ask you a question before I answer you. When 2 men are engaging in sexual intercourse, is that something that results in any harm in any way, shape, or form? Or is it something completely sanitary and good for the human being? From a scientific point of view, just objectively.
If they are having oral, how should I say?
But your question is not about that.
But isn't that, does it only apply to let's say from behind?
No, I want you to give me. No, I want you to give. Yeah, like I said, I want to get graphic, right?
I know.
Like it's just the point is either way. I want you to answer for both of them because I don't know which 2 gay people are just gonna stick there. They're not gonna do anything else. Of course, they're gonna do everything. So in this case, yeah, look, I think you know the answer to that question. I think you know the answer to that question, and you can go to the NHS, for example, and look about, for example, how I think I have a list of 13 STDs. When they specifically talk about man-to-man intercourse. And they talk about the likelihood of it's happening and why. So, for example, they give you advice to wear, gloves and to wear all this plastic stuff and to put this and to do, which nobody does, basically. It's like you're going into operation, Why? Because that place where penetration happens, I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to get a little bit graphic. That place where penetration happens is a place where a person excretes. There's a lot of bacteria. It is not designed for that purpose. Therefore, it ruptures, bleeding happens, and due to that, you have diseases happening. I'm sure we all heard about the monkeypox. I don't want to go into the list of these things. Now, so there are societal harm that can take place. So it doesn't only stop at an individual to individual anymore. There are certain things that can happen that can also impact the entire society. And Islam is for the preservation, not only of the human being, like the West looks, but it's also the preservation of the society. So now, to fully answer your question, we have 2 people doing that act, which can result in what we said, 2 men, not 2 women, specifically penetration we're talking about. In Islam, there's a criteria. So what do you mean by get caught is the question, because the Islam has a very specific criteria. That criteria is that the person is caught in the act. There's 4 male practicing Muslim men witnessing the act. And by the way, this criteria also exists for adultery. And there isn't a single recorded case that I'm aware of in Islamic history where these conditions were met. Because it's almost like impossible to find 4 practicing Muslim men and they witness it, unless you're doing it in the middle of the street. So it's nearly impossible. So Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, which was one of the most encyclopedic scholars in Islamic history, we call him the Shaykh of Islam, that's the title. And he was one of the most prolific figures in Islamic history. You can research him later if you want. He said he didn't come across a single case where punishment were applied because they were caught in the act with 4 witnesses. There are cases in which people came forward themselves, and they said, we want to be punished. Muslims, they said, we did adultery, for example, we want to be punished. So unless this happens, there is no punishment happening. If this happens, now those people are brought to a judge and then they testify, then there's a capital punishment for this crime. In Islam, under a Sharia law in an Islamic state, and you're already familiar with that law. So if you're living in that country and you break the law, knowing that these are the conditions, and you're probably doing it in the street, because I don't see another way that this would happen. So In reality, there can be many people doing this and living in Muslim states, doing it in their own houses, and nobody will be able to punish them until the evidence is established upon them. In which this case, like I told you what the evidence is, which is so unlikely, because in Islam, Allah is not just trying to punish people. That's not the purpose of this religion. Allah doesn't just try to punish people. That is why we have a rule. It says the putative laws can be cancelled if there is any excuse. So if there is even 1% doubt, if there's anything that is an element of doubt or uncertainty, then there's no punishment. If 3 of these witnesses come forward, one does not testify to the same thing because they have to give details of what they saw. If 3 of them testify, one refuses, all of them will be lashed because they made an accusation without proof. So they will be punished. So Islam is a very serious thing when it comes to these laws. But yeah, this is the Islamic law.
So I just have to ask, what kind of capital punishment? How is the punishment?
Yeah, there is a disagreement among the scholars. The point is it ends in the death of the person. How it is performed is not. I don't really think it matters exactly how it's done, because I believe there is around like 3 different views of scholars, whatever, exactly how the punishment. Some of them will say stoning, some of them will say not necessarily, you don't need to do that. So there are different views among the scholars regarding specifically that act of homosexuality. So it's not one law specifically.
But in your eyes, all 3 of them are valid, you would say?
In my eyes, these are not things for me to determine. It's something for the ruler of the Muslim state, whatever that Muslim state is, that applies God's law. But I don't see it today.
Sure.
But look, for me, I don't make the rules. God makes the rules.
Sure.
That's what some people are like. I don't make the rules. But these rules, I not only believe, I can demonstrate, like I said, rationally, that they are just. Nobody's forcing you to do anything. Nobody's forcing you to live under an Islamic state that has the law and break the law and be in midday, not doing it in the middle of the street. Nobody's forcing you to do that. Now, if you don't do that, then there will be no punishment applied to you. So you're choosing to be punished. And even if you're not punished in this life, you will be punished in the afterlife. Nobody escapes God. So the question should be, now let me ask you a last question before I let you go now. Because you see, I was easily responding to you, rationally giving you answers. Now I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
You're not religious, are you? I'm assuming.
I'm 50-50, I guess.
50-50. Okay. I don't try to
I'm sitting on the fence.
Okay. So if you, but right now you're not following a specific religion, a scripture, whatever.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if I were to ask you the question, where do you get right or wrong from? Where do you get your morality from?
That's a really good question. I don't know. From the society, I don't know. I don't know where you can say definitely where it's right and wrong.
So do you then agree, if it's from the society, then it's more relativism. So then do you agree that therefore it means number 1 is subjective, number 2 it changes with time, and that's why you can go to the UK in 1960s or before, they were hanging the people from the community in the streets. They were doing that, and then gradually the law changed after, like I said, sexual revolution, all of that, Enlightenment period, etc. So you agree then that morality is relative, meaning it's subjective and it changes. And therefore, it would mean there's no right or wrong. Because if morality is based on where your community, every community has its own laws. And what that would mean, 2 things. It would mean, first, that Muslims are completely right within their laws because it's societal laws. Because all these punishments can only be applied in a Muslim community. So you would be essentially admitting that Muslims, what they're doing is perfectly moral. This is your moral worldview. If morality comes from the society, then you just admitted that Muslims, whatever they do in their community, is perfectly moral.
If I might jump
not
in?
only that, of course, I'll let you come in a second. Not only that, you also, in a way, is saying that slavery is right when it happened in the past, because that community believed that slavery was right.
Sure.
And you're also saying that punishing the LGBT community and putting them to death was right because that time the community agreed to it. It's moral relativism. That is what your position implies.
I said I don't know where I get my morals from, but I would say partly from society, from my personal thinking, and what you call it? Yeah, the harm.
Okay, so we dealt with the societal part. If you say society, I already told you, you be admitting that not only Muslims are perfectly moral, whatever they do in their societies, but also that in the past it was okay to punish the people from the community, and also that slavery was right. And number two, if you say from your own self, then we'll tell you with all due respect, why does anybody need to follow what you think is right or wrong? It's your opinion. Why does it's a subjective personal opinion of an individual in a specific country among 8 billion people? Why do we need to listen to whatever you think? Like I'm obviously not demeaning you by that or anything. I'll just say, well, yeah, why do we need to do that?
I think you can look at when there is, what do you call it? There had been studies on this. Which countries are the happiest on this planet?
Oh, please, no. Please. Yeah, that's the unhappiest. The unhappiest countries on earth are the atheistic countries. They have the high suicidal rates because the problem is whatever studies you're looking at are looking at GDP or whatever per capita. They're looking at the money, how much money they're getting. That's not happiness. Look at the studies that shows depression, antidepressant meds, suicide, and all of that. The first of the list, you will see all the atheistic countries: Sweden, Denmark, all of these. Number one in the list. Look at Pew Research Institute when it comes to suicide, antidepressant meds, all of this stuff. Look, in every societal metric, the West is failing. If you look at Blanchflower and Oswald, it's a study that was done, 100,000 women, 100,000. You know what 100,000 is? It's probably the biggest study that was done. It's called Blanchflower and Oswald. And it looks at women happiness from feminism, 1960s or 70s, until today, or recent 2000s. And it is showing this decline of happiness in women among the West. They're all getting antidepressant meds, whatever. They're unhappy, all of them. If you look at the Pew Research Institute, it shows it has specific studies where it compares religious people and non-religious people. I can present you so many studies where it shows that the happiest people, when it comes to self-satisfaction, happiness, all of these things are religious people, according to Pew Research Institute, according to non-Muslim institutes. Plus, this is not an argument, anyways. We were talking about where right and wrong comes from, not who's happy and who's not. I mean, do you agree with me? Do you agree with me? Last thing I want to say. Do you agree with me that a rapist or whatever can be very happy doing what he's doing?
Sure, if that's
okay. So happiness is not. So you agree then that happiness is not a determiner. If you're happy or not happy, then therefore what you're doing is right or wrong.
Sure.
Okay, so let's ignore that, which is as I said, inaccurate, but it's not even an argument. So I'm asking, how do you determine? Why do we need to follow? That was my question. Why do we need to follow? You tried to say happiness, but then I presented you with evidences opposite to that. We don't need to follow your specific methods. You specifically now, you as an individual, of what you think is right or wrong. That is not binding for us. It's a subjective opinion. So now all the questions that you've been asking me, even though I was giving you rational answers, I could just tell you I disagree with you. That's what we do, and that's what we think. And that should be more than sufficient, because I should be entitled to my opinion in your worldview, the way you are entitled to your opinion. So what makes certain people in the West think that their morality is superior and they get to tell us what to do with our women or what to do with our houses or how to deal with our families, since all of their worldviews are subjective?
So would you say the way women are living in Afghanistan is better than Europe?
I don't know how women are living in Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a war-torn country destroyed by the US. Everyone is living a very difficult economic situation because of it. I'm not sure exactly how people have not been to Afghanistan personally, and I'm not sure how they live their lives. So I cannot comment on something like that I'm not 100% sure of. But I'm pretty sure these women are happy living their lives the way they want. Not every single one of them, of course. There's unhappy people everywhere. But they are happy. If you go to them, they'll say to you, this is our country, these are our laws. We like what we're doing, and we live. Even Trump, I think there's a video of him. I was happy saying, leave Afghanistan. People, hey, the women are happy. They've been covering for thousands of years. Why are we going to come to them and tell them not to cover? There's a video of Trump literally saying this about Afghani women.
We want it where the women over there don't have to wear the you-know-what. And then I said, oh, well, that makes sense. That's nice. Then I saw women interviewed. They said, we want to wear them. We've worn them for 1,000 years. Why would anybody tell us not to? They want to. What the hell are we getting involved for?
They're happy with their own culture and society. Who are you to come and tell them how to live their life?
So all the noise that has happened after the US went out of Afghanistan, I think
kicked out where they couldn't do anything. They've been like losers kicked out by the Muslims there who don't have weapons, but they were people upon faith, and they didn't surrender. They had to leave. They had no choice. They stayed there for tens of years. They're trying to go in, them and the Russians or whatever. They couldn't.
So if I might just add, I don't mean to interrupt you any sort of.
Sure.
But accordingly to Wilson Center, approximately 80% of all suicide attempts in Afghanistan are women.
Where's this Wilson Center?
I'm sorry?
I never heard of it in my life. Where's this Wilson Center? Are you telling me they went and surveyed all the women in Afghanistan and they asked them and they came to the conclusion that 80% of them want to commit suicide? What's with method? Who did this study? You think Afghanistan allows some random people to come and survey their women and ask them whether they want to live? What is this? This is the problem. You read things online and you actually think that these are representatives of actual surveys that takes place in reality. No, they're not.
So all the noise that has happened from the WHO about how the living conditions, all the human rights organizations.
Yes, I told you. Not all the human rights organizations, but I told you there is a societal, and this is the last thing, and we can end our discussion here. There is a hatred for Muslims, a demonization that takes place. You can look at studies that shows you that Muslims are, when it comes to the T word or whatever, they are put in the media 5 times more than the average person. There's an agenda to demonize our people and to make them look barbaric and to make them look in a certain way. Now, America wanted to go and take over the country. They couldn't. They even tried old methods of inserting people within the community, dividing the community, giving weapons. They tried everything. They couldn't. Now, what they do due to them being sore losers is now they're trying other methods of demonizing these people. Because in the end, you cannot go and take over a nation unless you demonize it first. You need to do that. That's what they did with Iraq. That's why they claim there is weapons of mass destruction, because then that can give them a justification. They need to demonize the people in order for them to give a justification to themselves when they go in these countries and destroy it and pretend that they are saving it or whatever. Every person I know from Afghanistan, even though I have not been to Afghanistan, every person I know with their families, none of them have any issues with their wives. None of their wives complain. No issues. You've not been to Afghanistan yourself? I'm assuming you probably don't know anyone who is Afghani and a family who is Afghani. And certainly if you do, you wouldn't know any of them.
I know a lot of people who are Afghani, actually.
And they're telling you, oh, well, we are in a terrible life and we hate Afghanistan and we wish for US come and liberate us. They tell you that? And our women are in the terrible cases. They tell you this stuff?
How things are now are much, much worse, they're saying. So I don't know why.
From what angle are they saying is worse?
No, from Amnesty. If you have... look, are there any form of Western... what do you call media companies or let's say a human rights organization from the West that you trust when it comes to reporting treatment of women in Afghanistan, or let's say
For me, if you want reports, bring reports from the country themselves, because I know all of these nations, like I told you already, there is a Western, there is a clear, the media. Why is the media? That blows my mind. Why is American media, European media, UK media reporting about Afghanistan? It's not your country, man. Why are you day and night talking about them? Are you not seeing that there is something going on here? They are trying to make you think a specific way about Muslim people or people who live in Afghanistan and have certain views.
Wait. If I might just answer, would you say the same thing about North Korea? How the world are reporting on the living condition of North Korea? Are all those untrue?
Look, I don't know the situation of North Korea. Again, I'm going to tell you the same thing. But if you have people internally, in which cases you do have people fleeing North Korea and then telling you what's happening to them, you don't have the same thing to show me here. Show me, where are all of these people fleeing Afghanistan telling you, oh, look, we have been in the worst. That doesn't exist. North Korea is not a good example because of that. People are going.
So you would say Amnesty is lying when they're talking about it?
North Korea?
About Afghanistan?
No, I'm saying, look, I'm not saying Afghanistan are saints. I just responded to you by telling you I haven't been there. But I'm saying there is definitely an exaggeration, number one, of what's taking place. Number two, the West has no right to talk to us about women or what we can and cannot do, because their morality is subjective, and they're not our superiors to tell us, to lecture us about moral right and moral wrong. Your countries are full, with the reports of your own research institutes, they're full of abuse and bad treatment of women. The Telegraph has a study in France. They surveyed, like, I don't know, 600 women or whatever who went on the buses, and they reported 100% molestation reports for women. They're all being molested in your buses. Go to the UN has the biggest study that was done for women. It's called Women Abused Everywhere, Every Day. What it shows you that almost all women, at least like 30% of them, like abused physically, they're being forced to watch pornographic material, whatever. Study, look at it now. Women studied every day. The biggest study that was done by the UN on and America in the West. America and the West. They're not talking about our countries. They're talking about America and the West. We're saying the last person who comes and lectures us about treatment of women is the West. We don't take your word because you are the biggest abuse. Not you, obviously. And I'll be clear here because I'm using the word you. I don't want you to feel like
I know.
the West is the biggest. Yeah, the West is the biggest abuser. Look at England. What happens when people lose football matches and all the abuse they do to the women? Look at the surveys that are done. So in the end, it's a very simple thing. The West has no right to lecture us. Yes, people in Afghanistan are not perfect, but people in the whole world are not perfect. So to focus on one incident or two incidents does not mean anything. There's exaggeration. There's agenda that is happening to make them look in a specific bad light. Anyways, now I do have to end the stream. I know we've been talking like
sure.
Maybe hour and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I hope to
Yes.
come back again and have another conversation about some other stuff.
Yeah, perhaps, but hopefully on something which is more foundation. Because I can answer all of these questions, but I asked you the question about where morality comes from for that reason. Because if morality doesn't come from God, it's subjective. Our morality, we claim is superior. But we don't claim it's superior because it's from me. It's not an ego thing. We claim it's superior because it comes from God. It's not bound by people. It's not bound by culture. It's not bound by a group of human beings. We say we have here's the evidences that this religion is from God. This scripture is from God. Here it is preserved. And therefore, people need to follow God's guidance, God's determination of what's right or wrong. So if morality can only be objective when it's from God, and if Islamic morality is from God, if these two things are true, then Muslims have every right to implement that and tell other people to also implement it. Anyways, it was a pleasure having this discussion. I hope I didn't say anything is disrespectful. It wasn't the intention. It's just
Sure.
All right. Pleasure talking to
take
you.
care.
Bye-bye.